That's ISO. Rack it up. I got a bit of the bank.
It's recording now?
Yeah.
Hold on.
In case this thing beeps.
To my fans.
All right. Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Pushbox Podcast, episode 2. We're between the rig. We're talking about that sweet fitness. And listeners, we have Coach Josh today, and I am excited and scared to see what happens with this. Say hello to all your fans.
Oh, you got quiet.
Oh.
My Cheryl voice.
Big tree just became a very small bush with
NPR.
timidness.
No, this is nerve-wracking, mainly because, I've talked to everybody here, but, to have this documented and out there for the world,
Forever.
we can rewatch this. I'll rewatch this, and I'd be like, cringe.
Yeah, just don't look at the camera. Look in my eyes the
Can't
whole
help
time.
it.
Just, I'll keep you safe.
Hi, Mom.
Well, on our last, oh my gosh, on our last and first and only episode, we kind of were general about like who we are, what is push, the who, what, where, when, and why, and now we kind of want to get a little more specific. So we kind of get asked a lot, and I feel like referred to in positive ways, which is obviously flattering for all of us as a team, but our programming. So we want to talk a little more about programming, what we do here, why we do it, maybe programming just kind of in general, and just kind of our approach and philosophy to that. But first, just before we started recording, we got a question of the day in the WhatsApp group. And it comes from Seattle's own Caroline. At Aidan, please define, quote, taint swinger. And again, the question was, please define what a taint swinger is. I have, recently been saying this phrase and description.
In class?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
we usually miss our classes because then I'm coaching your home.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So
True.
True. Oh,
I
cool.
am here sometimes with my client, yeah.
Yeah. So I refer to real shitty toes to bar as taint swingers. And let's clear this up. To be clear, the taint, the area between the testicles and the anus.
I'm sorry, can you say that word one more time?
Taint, the area between the testicles or vulva and the anus. So this was a vulgar dictionary definition on Google. So pretty much what we're referring to is on toes to bar or any kind of kipping beat swing motion when we're hanging, rings, bar, is we always want to cue eyes forward. When we just kind of start from a dead hang and swing our toes up into the air like we're kind of a kid on a swing set trying to generate momentum from the lower half and not understanding kind of that whole cue of pull down on the bar and find that hollow position and Superman and back and forth. By looking forward, that kind of keeps us in that line. If we just throw our hips up into the air, it kind of shows what I like to call the barrel of the gun. And we know each other. I don't need to see that. But it doesn't allow us to proficiently link consecutive reps together because now we're swinging from our lower half and we can't ever stop. And I don't really like that, God forbid, when you do that, it presents your back to the floor. And so let's say your hands slip, you're now falling and your spine is presenting itself first thing to hit the floor. Yeah. So I just call it taint swinger because I don't know. Years later, I got to entertain myself to how I cue things. And I think once you hear that and visualize it, you're like, oh, my cues are usually PG-13 at best and very visual for better or for worse because I don't want you to get it. So, yeah.
I didn't think about that because I didn't really think about how you would even swing a taint.
Oh, you can swing a taint.
Now I can visualize that. But before you even put toes to bar together, it's like, I'm just sitting there like,
how do I do this?
How do you swing the taint?
Yeah. Well, there it is. So that was what a taint swinger is. I like that. That was better than what my question was going to be. I was going to do a game of Fuck, Marry, Kill.
I love that game.
We can still play.
Okay, let's play. Fuck, Marry, Kill. Echo bike, rower, ski erg. And I'll let you two answer first.
Hold on.
Echo bike, rower, ski erg.
I can answer this. I'm going to marry the ski erg. Just because we complement each other so well. I'm a big guy. I can really get my hips involved. We have some serious magic there. I'm going to fuck the Echo bike because it fucks me back.
Hold on.
What?
Is it a good?
That's a good fuck. But it puts me on the floor. I'm thinking about the next day. It's an angry fuck. But sometimes the angry fucks are the best fucks.
Yeah. But you two consent to that.
No, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. We everything's consensual.
We want to clear this up.
Everything's consensual.
Yeah. A lot of listeners are getting confused on that one.
And I never really liked the rower. I'm good at it, but I'm going to kill it. I can do without the rower.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean,
I'm
it's just.
very surprised by that.
Okay.
I mean, I've been there, done that.
Move on.
Yeah.
Cheryl, what about you?
I would definitely marry the Echo.
Oh, you nasty. Okay.
Well, we know I prefer biking.
True.
Man, this one's hard because I don't like either of the other ones.
Okay.
I would probably kill. This is hard.
I mean, this is a lot of just
Kill the
airtime
ski?
on the podcast. Kill the ski. Okay.
Kill the ski.
And marry the rower? No, I'm sorry. And fuck the rower.
Yeah.
Okay. Josh, this doesn't happen a lot in our relationship, but I agree with you.
All right. I like it.
You guys are the same?
Well,
Boring.
We can share the ski erg. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be an open marriage, but we're married to the skier.
We'll figure it out.
In that competition we just finished, it was my nightmare. I was right next to Kyle on the rower, and I'm talking we could see each other's screens. We could see each other seeing each other's screen. And even the judges who didn't know us were like, you guys are like neck and neck. And like, I don't want to get into a row off with Kyle. And did I? Yes. Did Caroline and I win the workout? Yes. Was it worth it? I don't really know to this day.
Is that what ruined the rower for you?
It was already kind of a rocky relationship. Okay. And that really just put it over the edge. Okay. So great caller question. And thanks for playing my question.
Yeah.
Let's get to programming.
That
whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
We'll eventually get back to topics here in this podcast. And by the way, any questions, silly or serious, you guys want to know, you guys as in the listeners, please send us them. You can message.
Do you think you lost any listeners? First time.
Maybe two.
I want to be like in the net black. I'm sure we're losing some. It's kind of like memberships. You probably lose a couple throughout the time, but like hopefully you're gaining more.
Yeah.
So programming. Let's kind of open up with like, what is a program? And very, very simply, it is kind of a step-by-step process to get you from where you are to the goal. And like, so it's a very simple definition, at least the way I look at it, right? Like, oh, you're at A, you want to get to B. How do I get there? Okay, well, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, or day 1, day 2, and boom. All right, it can be very simple. It can be very complex and detailed. I love programming. I was 6 to midnight before we even started this podcast when I knew we were talking about programming, right? So I love that stuff. Josh and I now are meeting up pretty much weekly.
Yeah.
And going over this because you have a passion for it or a growing passion.
I want to learn more about it. And it's something that kind of really got me into being a coach and, wanting to really coach my son when I get older, even though he finds more interest in the guitar now, other than
it's a baseball bat,
else.
but he sees it as a guitar.
Well, I got him a real
shout
guitar
out to
now,
Micah.
too.
When you listen to this one day, you're awesome.
In like 18 years when I'm allowing you to listen to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
If you can define a taint, Micah, you can listen to this. Yeah.
But that's why I got into this. And to be honest, you've been doing a really great job at it since the day I met you. And I really kind of want to be like more of an understudy and just kind of like, honestly, learn from the best from my standpoint.
Thank you.
So for new listeners, they don't know. Who programs for our gym? You do.
Aidan.
I do.
Aidan
Aidan does.
Yeah.
But any listeners from last podcast, to be clear, Josh and I did not meet on Craigslist.
Unfortunately.
Aww.
Yeah. So we won't go down that rabbit hole again. Yeah. I've done the programming for this gym at one point, even for like you one-on-one at the old gym. It's, I love it. I compare it a lot to cooking. And I get asked this a lot. I've been asked this before. I have conversations with other gym owners and coaches. It's, do you outsource your own? Like, do you do one of the other programs that are kind of like the bigger ones, the Proven, the CompTrain, the Mayhem, all that kind of stuff? Or do you do it yourself? And I think it'd be kind of fun to play a little game of kind of devil's advocate or the two sides of every coin kind of scenario. We do our own, but the visual I had was, imagine I'm hosting a dinner party and I'm bringing everyone over and I get it catered. And like the music's right, The setting's right. The candles are just like, oh, what is that? Like peach vanilla? It is. It's great. Like forks are all polished and the food is amazing. And we're having a great time, right? And that kind of setting is like our culture at the gym. Mm-hmm. You come into this place with other people and we're trying to create this experience and vibe and we're crushing it. Let's say you come up to me after, you're like, oh my God, that was amazing. What was that parsley that was in that? Like, am I saying parsley? And I'm like, I don't know. I got it catered. I was like, oh, either way, it was great. And then you come up, you're like, just checking, is there peanuts in here? I'm allergic. I'm like, I don't know. And so what I'm kind of comparing there is, now imagine I did the cooking. I knew what was in it. I knew that you could not have peanuts. I knew that you love parsley. All of a sudden now we're having this connection from kind of cook and diner or coach and athlete. And I think if you have the knowledge and capacity and experience to do the programming, then I think you should for your gym, especially when you have a kind of the finger on the pulse of your members and your athletes, because you know, if you've dropped into different gyms, certain people should not be doing mayhem compete with the average age of like 68. Now, we can scale anything, don't get me wrong, but we really know how to express the stimulus. And there's another point of potential problem is the coach may not be experienced enough as a coach or care about programming. Maybe they're big in nutrition. They don't have the same passion and interest you have in programming. And they're like, I don't know how to scale this. Like, what do I do instead of a rope climb? We don't have that. We barely have 10-foot ceilings, and like, oh gosh. So there's some issues you can run into. And so I love having that feedback from members. And we do a lot of the stuff. It's like, oh, it should feel this way. I just went through this, right? Like Callie loves doing the workouts before coaching it. So there's that, like, I can relate to this. Here's how I crushed it. Here's where like the wheels fell off. This is what the intention of the stimulus was, and so on, so on, so on. I think where you could argue you should outsource potentially is if you have no fucking clue on what you're doing. Yeah. Then it's like, you don't want to also guess wrong. And like, you're like, well, I forgot if you like peanuts. And just like, you doused it in like peanut sauce. Like, oh, I killed someone. Or it's not fun, or it doesn't actually, there's no like progressive overload, or there's no anything, and it doesn't lead you anywhere. And then you're just kind of like, eh. And I feel like we've heard a lot of kind of that from people coming from other gyms. It's never like bad talking. It's just kind of like, it was fine, which is like my least favorite descriptive word in anything.
I think it's a little bit of trust and buy-in. Like, Kim was talking to an old gym she went to. They did someone else's programming. She's just kind of like, well, it didn't sound like she had as much buy-in to the gym then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's what the feeling I got from her, where she's like, oh, you program, you care about this, you have an investment, and you're also seeing how the members.
So like athlete to coach buy-in and like account. Okay. Yeah. I like that. I agree.
Yeah.
You also take a little bit more pride in it too when you do it yourself versus just taking it from somebody else. Like, and another thing is, you know where you've been, you know where you're at, and you know where you're going, versus just taking something on a piece of paper and then just putting it up on there. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why I want to get into programming. And funny thing that you even brought up cooking is I love to cook. Yeah. And I was actually thinking about that in the same analogy. It was like, oh, how do I do programming with cooking, right? And even if I don't know how to do something, I'll look something up. And I don't know if anybody else does this, but I'll never follow the recipe exactly. I'm like, all right, I know what they're doing here, and I'm going to add my own little twist on it just so I can say it's mine. And I can take some pride in that. So I get the basis of something, and that's kind of what I want to do with you. Yeah. It's like, you're kind of teaching me how to like program, and then I want to kind of put my own Josh flair on it. So people are like, oh, you did that? I'm like, yeah, that was me. So and that's what I really want to get into it.
It's like green onions. I went chives. Yeah. Kind of remind me, if we can, with all three of our brain capacities right now, to like circle back to something when you said, I see this recipe and then I kind of want to put my own flair to it or do something different. Let's see if we can kind of like bookmark that and come back to that. I'm not quite confident we can do that in like 30 minutes, but try. I want to kind of get back to either kind of why and how we program here. Push, as we clarified in episode 1, is pick up something heavy. I think the nice thing, but the kind of confusing part to the outside world is like CrossFit, as you just brought up, is, constantly varied functional movement performed at high intensity. It is kind of a three-headed monster of monostructural, which is kind of a really fancy way to say like cardio, something cyclical there, right? We have weightlifting, which again is like anything external, like me picking up this cup to picking up 500 pounds. And then there's gymnastics, which is kind of the, hey, I need you to air squat well, to I need you to do an iron cross on the rings in the Olympics, right? And so it's funny because really by that definition, it's like anything kind of, like it's not just barbell this and dumbbell that. I mean, we're seeing pig flips at the games and Husafel carries and jerry can carries, and you're running up crazy mountains and back down. It's not just flat tracks. And so like in kind of a easy way, in a safe way, anything could technically be that. But there's still a lot of the original kind of science behind, periodization and linear progression and conjugate and all these things that have shown results before kind of CrossFit came onto the scenes and kind of took these things that already existed by definition and existence and made it the definition of that methodology. I want people to get stronger. Like you can kind of use any cliche thing on a bumper sticker, but like stronger people are harder to kill.
He doesn't want to get stronger though. Anybody that says they don't want to get stronger is lying. Everyone wants to get stronger.
I think if the answer to these questions are so like, duh, why even ask them? Like, hey, Cheryl, do you want to be stronger or weaker? Hey, do you want to be faster or slower?
Stronger, 100%.
Right, 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
You want to be like leaner, or do you not want to see your abs? Do you, like all these kind of like duh things. It's okay. There's a certain level of like research and science and methodology behind that.
Hashtag science.
Yeah. I mean, as a former scientist, Cheryl.
It's all science.
How do you
Fitness is science.
How do you love programming and science behind it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a protocol to follow, but you manipulate the protocol. I mean, that's what you experiment in science. It's very similar.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, like cooking. Cooking is very scientific as well. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so to kind of use those kind of fancier terms, like when we program here and how I usually kind of look at it is you have what we call kind of like a macro cycle. It's like the bigger bird's eye view. And to really simplify this for listeners who don't care about fancy words, like that, let's just say like it's up to a year. Like that's your year goal. That's your big block of time. It's annual. And then meso is these kind of seasonal. That's a lot of things we kind of post. It's like, hey, the next 7 weeks, we're doing this. The next 6 weeks, next 4 weeks, the next like 8 weeks. It's that kind of mid-tier. And then micro or anything within like that, like 1 week or even like day to day. And that's what kind of builds it up. So kind of like that Russian doll thing. You keep pulling it out. There's more and more and more and more. And that's how you break down. And I think that's actually a really smart approach. You see that that's how a lot of my approach is in nutrition even. It's my end goal is X. I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to dissect that into like quarters now. I'm going to dissect that into weekly. I'm going to dissect that into, because it's really hard to like, put your hand up over your eyes and like try to like squint and see off into the distance and be like, I should be getting there at this approach. You're like, not really, because we're humans. We have feelings. Wall balls. I'm not coming in. I need to get stronger, but I just hate using chalk and picking anything up over 50%. I'm like, well, then you're not going to get stronger. So we always do a strength focus. You just need to. I mean, we can see the data and research on like bone density and things like that, and skeletal tissue and muscles and all that kind of stuff. But we need to move against weight. We see that a lot in real life. Like you mentioned, you have a kid. Well, kids only get bigger.
No, yeah,
right?
It's only
like,
getting heavier.
Unless it's like Benjamin Button. Like Mike is going to get bigger. You're 6'4" and a solid man. I'm sure he's not going to be small. And so you want to play with him and throw uppies in the air and catch. And if you couldn't, and I think a lot of people sometimes roll their eyes like, oh, you're saying we're doing clean and jerks so I can throw a kid in the air. I'm like, well, like maybe like not literally that was your goal coming into it. But sure as shit, next time you try to pick up anything and you slip your back, you're like, oh, cool. It was groceries full of like a bushel of bananas, some strawberries and like toilet paper. And I slipped a disc. I'm like, next, you're fucking weak.
Yeah.
And you avoid that. Or you don't know, how to approach that, which is a separate kind of like issue. It's like, where do I research? Where do I go out? I'm vulnerable. I want help. You just don't know. That's a separate thing. But if you just are like, whatever, okay, then you're not going to progress. Gymnastics progressions, we always want to focus on something, because if you don't move yourself well, you're not going to crush moving really heavy weights well. And like conditioning. Like you see that kind of hierarchy on that CrossFit pyramid, right? The bottom is nutrition, and really below that should be sleep. Like that's a whole separate topic, and we'll go back to that. But it's like sleep, really, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion. Sleep, nutrition, metabolic conditioning, pretty much if you don't have the capacity, like we see what happens. Lightweight in a Metcon gets real heavy feeling once your pitter patter gets way out of control. Then it's gymnastics, control yourself. Now we can introduce throwing and weightlifting, and then you can kind of get very like sport specific in that training. You've kind of proven it doesn't have to be like a master it and then pass go, but you should be able to show capacity and proficiency in these things in order to kind of bump up to the next level, especially in kind of Metcons and CrossFit. Like that's where a lot of like the wheels can fall off real quick. So we will always focus specifically on those three elements, and then we bias something. Okay, stronger is kind of a loose definition. Okay, yeah, but we won't get stronger in powerlifting. Okay, so we'll probably be deadlifting, strict pressing or benching to some capacity, or squatting, right? Okay, if we're going to kind of know that's going to transition to a weightlifting cycle next, we may bias the front squat because we know we now need to receive the clean. And yes, we can move more weight in back squat, but if we can also get our front squat up, it's going to help with that clean, saving our legs and energy, therefore saving some drive for the jerk, so on and so on. So that's kind of my viewpoint on that is we just finished prior to this cycle a lot of strict vertical pulling and strict horizontal pushing. And you're seeing a lot of that topic, which I know a lot of people roll their eyes at, is you should be able to show control of strict gymnastics before kipping.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can and should never, but it's going to be a hell of a lot better time for you if you can control your shit, especially when you're doing like 21-15-9. Like Matt, the workout JT, 21-15-9, handstand push-ups, ring dips, push-ups. Like, hey, what's up, redundancy? Like, if you don't have any capacity there and now you go back to the 15s on handstand push-ups, you're going to flail, drop on your neck, right? You're going to slip through the shoulders on the rings. And so that's where scaling comes in. Like, you can still program certain things, but know how to scale down for kind of gen pop there. So we definitely go kind of hard in the science paint on that. I don't mind stepping away from what you consider traditional CrossFit. I mean, I think a lot of people today would view this and be like, that's CrossFit. Which is funny because I don't know if I asked them like snatches and burpees, 1 to 10 on one of them, 10 to 1 on the other. Like classic. And I love hearing that. I'm like, define that. They're like, I don't know how to.
Just
I'm
gross.
like, right.
Everything's
like,
gross.
Just gross.
And
like, where's the chalk and I taste blood?
Yeah.
And I'm like, CrossFit. But you can't do that every day. The body's just going to break the fuck down. And we need to not always just view the games athletes, but they do it. I'm like, okay. Like LeBron can do a 360 windmill dunk. I can barely do it like, you know.
But do you think he does it every day, all day? No.
No, there's things behind the scenes we don't see.
There's practicing and then there's competing.
But the first thing we learned when we got our L1 was we're not games athletes and that's not sustainable. That's not healthy living. Right? Like these are professional athletes that know that that's why you saw, you know, Frazier and like, what did he retire at 30, 32?
Yeah. He's like, yeah, guys, you get it. I'm good.
I'm done. Yeah.
I'm not going to have a kid. I'm going to run a business. I'm going to train other people. Life's okay.
You can't train 3-4 hours a day at that high intensity for the rest. It's just not healthy. It's not healthy for you. So as much as we like to think that's what health is, that's not it.
Right. So. No, it swings back to the other side of like that sickness curve. Of like, oh, you're sick. And it's like, we swing out, we're trying to be healthy. But like, you go too hard in that paint, you come back and it's like, you can't, like even like football players, there's like research. It was like it almost takes 3 years off your life playing football there. And that's usually the average rookie contract length is 3 years. And because like you're playing such a high level and obviously you're getting like smashed around in football compared to something else, but like you can't keep doing that forever. But you can go on walks, you can run, you can scale things down, you can scale things up. You can see what the intention is. You can squat, there's all these things we can do. So yeah, usually there's obviously reasons and rhyme to the reason behind what we do there. Like we kind of did a bunch of 5s in kind of like low end hypertrophy, higher end strength, and now we're going to more top end 3s, 2s, 1s. Because if we're also looking at quote the gen pop, we want to imagine and assume not every one of these previous D1 athletes coming into it with a lot of kind of what we call training age versus biological age. Like, oh, cool, you're 40, but you have never really worked out except 4 times at various boot camp. Like that's a lot of probably gunk and crappy movement and habits deposited in you. Let's not just go for 1 rep max out the gate. Or if it's programmed, we're not going to say don't come to class, but like, I'm going to push you, Josh. If I see him like, oh, dude, you got like 2.5 more pounds and you know exactly what that feels like.
Oh yeah.
Right, like 2.5.
Yeah.
Someone else is like, I don't think I can go any heavier. And they like do 8 more and they do. I'm like, you can go heavier.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know that. So we need to know how to push people. Like today's for you, just find a heavy single that doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
For Josh, it's like, you might die, but like you might PR lifetime by 2.5 pounds. Like we're putting 3 clips on one side just to make it like slightly heavier. But you have that athlete awareness and IQ and history beyond that. So like, we're going to keep doing what we do. I think,
I would say people that come in here, let's say a year ago,
Mhm.
who were at that level where they're like, I don't really know. Like, I've never done a 1 rep max. Like, I have no idea. They're just feeling out. Like, fast forward to now, most of them are like, I know my 1 rep max. Like, now I'm so much stronger.
Mhm.
They learn quickly. Like, I don't.
sorry, for people listening to the
Was there a bug?
podcast and not watching, there was a bug like, coming right at
Like,
like, kamikaze style.
I would say, like, if you're Gen Pop, just starting at age 40, like, it is not impossible to then a year later be at a higher level after training here. I think we focus a lot on teaching people and focusing on strength, which it sounds like some gyms in the area have kind of let go. Like, I mean, we've had some members come here, like, I kind of hit a plateau.
I'm curious for your guys' just opinions hearing that, even if you like weren't previous members or coaches. They're like, we're hearing that a lot recently. Why do you think that is?
I think it's churn, like get people in, get people out.
Okay.
I
$1
think
bills,
it's
y'all.
in liability. Like everyone's scared. Like, it's fine. Yeah, you don't have to pick that up. Like, scared of the barbell.
But I
Or
love
scared
that,
of
though,
heavy
right? They're like,
weight.
we're going to get you stronger, healthier, fitness, all that. And it's like, you know what? Just always hold a 230 on the road, no matter how long it is. I just want you to be comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Not us.
I think
Your
people-
hips are going to go below your knees here
Yeah.
for a squat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think people are afraid of failure sometimes,
Sure.
and they don't want to fail. And I think in order to really find that line and who you are and what your fitness is, you have to do it. You have to fail.
Mhm.
I mean, failure can be the best learning tool. Is finding where your strengths are and where they stop, and trying to really go beyond that. And I think a lot of times people are just afraid to kind of go there, either with strength wise, conditioning wise, anything. And I think people, when they find failure, they find discomfort and they don't want to feel that anymore.
Yeah, and if you're that person kind of listening to that and like you're like, oh, that's me. I cannot stress enough, like you need to sometimes like drive into the bumper lanes and get bounced around and thrown. Like you need to know where the lines are you should and shouldn't draw out of. Because I'll tell you right now, someone who's pretty competitive and an athlete, and this is really what got me going kind of on this. I remember this. It was my first open. I mean, this is kind of like, why is Aidan like this personality wise, and like the way he kind of like hypes himself up and talks to himself? Why does he do these like kind of like crazy workouts? So like I think it was a 12-minute AMRAP, 150 wall ball, aka Karen, into I believe it was 90 double unders, 30 ring muscle ups. It's like, we know the CrossFit Open loves saying AMRAP, but it's like you're not going to get out fucking one round. We're trying to separate them out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, dude, you're going to crush this. You're good at ring muscle ups. I'm like, I have them. You're right. I am. But I didn't really do legs. I wasn't like that kind of bro cliche, but it just.
Well, we saw a picture.
Oh, man. Yeah, like my calf ran all the way up to my taint, It was just one. But it was just kind of like I was a catcher in baseball. I had some knee stuff, so I was always squatting there. It was like I was a dancer for a while, so like I didn't want these like bulky legs. I wasn't introduced to weight training for a while. So all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, it hurts. Like when you don't feel comfortable taking a shit because your legs are on fire, I'm like, let's avoid that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I'll tell you what happens when you avoid things, or you're not on a program, or you're afraid of failure, is I got blown the fuck up. Now the person I was also doing at the gym doing the open, he kind of re-game planned my approach to the wall balls. But long of it short, Aidan did not do well. I got 0 ring muscle ups. I was like, it felt like someone stole my bones. I got off the wall ball. I couldn't like double under even though I could. And I couldn't get to that. I did not speak for 2 days. And it was the first time my parents ever watched me.
Oh.
And like imagine that. They're like, and if you've met my parents, they're like, you're number one. Like so supportive. Like mom's like, I love you no matter what. And like, you're going to crush it. Like, thanks mom. What's for dinner after? Like, am I still your baby boy? And then I failed in my mind.
Uh-huh.
Like It was a toxic mentality at that time. I was like, I failed. I didn't speak for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, never again will I feel that. And it's the whole, like, you play baseball, we play baseball. I would rather take a baseball like to the face or the body that took a bad hop than be scared, move my body, the ball goes through my legs, and the winning run came in. And that kind of shame and guilt, like, you could have done this thing and you chose not to and you wussed out. And I was like, okay. And so part of my program, and this is where I say, like, program can be loosely defined, is it wasn't this like end specific goal of I need to add 100 pounds to my back squat. It was, I need to not be emotional and have a narrative about movements or workout time domains or feelings. I just need to approach this and know I can. Because for me, I'm a big believer, confidence comes from experience, not just like positive things you say. And so I kind of tricked myself. My program for a while was take 3 movements, one I liked, one I like either hated or needed to get better at, and one I was indifferent towards. So pretty much at that time, I was always hang power clean. I'm like, ooh, give me some hang power cleans. Because again, I didn't want to go below parallel. But maybe it was like 7 hang power cleans, 14 JH sit-ups, 21 wall ball. And I like train. My first competition was 2-guy, 1-girl competition. And at that time, it was 2 days.
He said that.
What did I say? 2 guys.
No.
What?
2 guys,
Oh,
1 girl.
how did I miss that? Oh, dear Lord. That was our generation too. No cups were involved.
we all thought that.
I'm like, why is everyone looking at me? Is that not what I should say? Is that like,
No, you're good.
did I just get canceled? So there was myself, Charles, and Austin at this 2-day competition that we didn't know the workouts. One of them was at 2 a.m. in the morning.
That's what?
So I'm like, oh, is this CrossFit? I was like, what's happening right now? We could get a
anything
hotel.
can happen
Any
in
constantly
CrossFit.
varied, And that workout, by the way, people drove up to Linwood to watch this. And it was 7-minute synchronized max burpee to plate. Because this open I'm speaking of was my first open, first workout was 7 minutes max burpee to target above your head. So what I started to realize is this was kind of like its own version of the open, but tweaked. And the last workout was pretty much, it was 3 workouts. One partner had to do one had to do the other, and you could choose who did what. And I was left with the miniature version of that same open workout. It was 50 wall ball, 50 double unders, max muscle ups in remaining time.
Really?
I was having a fucking panic attack. I'm off scene, like in the back. I'm like it made sense for me to do it compared to what I could do compared to Charles and Austin and what they were better at than me at the other stuff. And my parents were there again. I'm like,
Redemption.
are you fucking kidding me right now? 50 wall ball, unbroken. 50 double unders, unbroken. And I don't know what, it was like a 4-minute time cap, or 3, some short thing. And got like 11 ring muscle ups. And I was over the moon. And that was just proof that when you stick to something and you leave your like emotional, like, but it's hard, like aside, you're going to get better. And when you get better, if you're not fucking pumped by that, like, I don't know why you're doing this.
Yeah.
Just in life. Like if you don't, it doesn't mean you always need to be striving for this crazy next thing and never appreciate the moment, the presence. But like, it was such a great experience. And it was just proof that like, okay, I'm now going to focus a lot more on this because if I can put in the effort and now the program makes sense, I'm going to get there and like, oh, it's going to be amazing.
As long as you show up. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, you just got to put your head down, suffer,
Yeah,
and
you have
then
to
when you
show up.
see those results happen,
I mean,
it makes
I
everything
think
worth
about, shout out to Anna. Like,
Bonza?
yeah.
Okay.
Like, think about Anna when she started.
Oh, for sure.
And now, how much she came into open gym. She still does. She's like, can I practice myself? I'm like, absolutely.
Like you don't need permission.
Yeah.
If you're here to get better,
Now she's-
fuck yeah.
Like, she went from no kipping pull-ups to dominating kipping pull-ups. Now she has toes to bar too.
Dude, toes to bar.
And now she's
amazing.
doing chest to bar.
Yeah.
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 But she comes in here. Has double unders now. Like, she came in all the time. It didn't take too much time. Like, I feel like she'd be in here for 30 minutes or something.
When you
And then when you practice,
when you
get
do
better.
the stuff, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, like, it's not like, and we don't mean like, oh, practice 95% deadlifts
No.
every day. It's like, no, we need to be smart about this. You're going to, shit your spine out and you're not going to, your nervous system is going to crash. You're not going to feel good for the next day. But it's, well, this makes sense. I didn't do too much pulling yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
There's none in the projected workout tomorrow. I'm going to practice some kips and beat swings and toes to bar and like, look what happens.
Or if you're attending class, you're practicing. I'm doing a fundamentals session today, and I was like, you don't have to nail all of this like right away. Like when you come, you will be coached, and it's always practice.
So
Practice.
I think
Practice.
practice.
We're talking about practice?
Practice.
Practice.
Training, practice.
No, I was actually going to say when I lost my muscle ups during COVID because obviously yeah,
We'll find
we all kind of lost something there. But when I first got back to the actual gym and I had room to do it and I tried to do muscle ups, it was very just defeating. And I tried to just every day just try to do a muscle up and nothing was working. So I went back to the fundamentals of just doing strict pull-ups. Just work better on my pulling. And I just try to add 50 more pull-ups every week. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I wouldn't do that on a pulling day, but just the days where we were doing a lot of pressing, just spend 5-10 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week. And then within 3 or 4 weeks, I got my first muscle up again. And then I've been building off that.
I was there. I recorded. You were there. I think it was 1 second before class started and we were all just
when
pumped.
I was trying to get one and couldn't get one. And then Josh was like, here I go. Yeah, that one. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's just a testament. It doesn't take 30, 40 minutes every day to do something. Just 5-10 minutes a day, 3 or 4 times a week. And you can move that needle tremendously and get to your goals.
So this, I kind of want to talk about this now because I feel like this is a very obvious segue to, here's a program that's 7 weeks. We did the squat cycle, cycles ago. It was 3 squats a week, 2 of them being front squat. That was my favorite one. I want to do that again. Yeah. I went from I hope 100%. I mean, as a scientist, I'm sure you appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it was very thoughtful. Just here it is. We're going to test on this. We're going to take numbers off of that. And we're going to do 2 front squats a week, 1 back squat and different rep schemes with different percentages building up to a retest. And I was like, gosh, I hope I can get 305, maybe 310 for my 300. 340. Same time, no coincidence that that was my best clean and jerk ever. And I also remember though, there was kind of, murmurs in the locker room. It's oh my God, we're squatting again. Or it's you can call it a cycle or not. Eventually people kind of they get distracted. They see something shiny. You're I feel we haven't done this in a while. But you need to stick to the program to actually see the results. So I'm curious what you guys think about when it's something works if you do it. And when you start to bias something, we biased strength training on specifically front squat and then back squat. And then we had, it's we didn't go crazy big on heavy deadlifts. We had definitely a lot of hinging on the accessory pieces. When you hear people, or even if you know it, you see a program for yourself, you're ooh, we're not doing a lot of this. I'm probably going to suffer a little bit there. What do you tell yourself, or what do you think you should tell athletes and members? But we're putting the marbles in these jars, and it's going to pay off.
I mean, running's for me, man. Whenever I see running, I'm just but at the end of the day, if I'm going up to something, it means I need to work on it. The only reason the reason I don't like running is because I'm not good at it. It takes a lot of effort for to carry my big ass across the parking lot, up that little tiny hill, back down. But at the end of the day, I need to run more, and I got to get better.
Because what does it lead to? You sacrifice the long term for the short term because you have feelings.
Yeah.
And these are, by the way, this probably goes into a podcast about mindset and all this stuff. It's not what your feelings were designed for. I don't like running. Okay, but then you seem to implode way more when you frustrate yourself that you're last in a workout, which, by the way, arbitrary, who cares? But you're last only because other people maybe showed up that class that were good runners, but really why you're mad is not because you're last, is because you suffered. And we don't like doing things. It's because you suck at it. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yep.
Now it's one thing. It's hey, I have elbow this and that, and the rack position, the rotation. It's okay, let's be smart about this. This is why I don't prefer this. But assuming you're healthy, it's stop avoiding things.
Yeah, I think just thinking about the squat cycle, for the people who grumbled, they probably got stronger. Maybe they're bored, but there's also what you program 6 days a week. It wasn't we were squatting every single day for an hour. There's several other hours in the week, and all those movements that you program or that they're oh, we haven't done this in a while, they're probably better at or stronger at because they've been squatting.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for people to see the big picture, but I think if there's buy-in, and now you're explaining this is why we do this, hopefully they can see we're doing this forever in my mind.
Yeah.
There's no end point, right? So does it matter if
there's
we
no
squat
end chapter
for 8
to
weeks?
this book. It's you're reading.
Yeah.
You know, like in certain chapters may be different stories, but like
Yeah.
you're reading. This is going on forever.
We're not telling you have to squat every Monday for the rest of your life. It's just for 8 weeks out of hopefully several.
And I guess it's not like I don't get it as like a person and a human. You know, it's like, oh, I feel like we've been doing this a lot. It's like, well, we have.
Yeah.
And then everyone, I'm talking, I think everyone PR'd on that cycle.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still interesting though.
But they enjoy it after that moment. I think it's like, oh,
bitch and moan,
sweet.
bitch and moan, bitch and moan. Oh my God, this actually worked. Did you know this was going to work? I'm like, fuck you. I knew this was going to work.
This is terrible.
And there's
That's the thing. You have to work to get to those points, right? Like you can't just jump to the 1 rep max and get your 300-pound back squat. Like,
well, I think this is where you see a lot of athletes that, that everyone has these people at the gym. It's like, I've been doing CrossFit for 8 years, but their weights are exactly the same, or the movement patterns are exactly the same, or they always bonk on certain things because they don't train it.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of mentioned this off podcast, and I think we should talk about is like difference between like training and exercising.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to get some level of fitness, and you're going to burn calories, and your little data watch, whatever you have nowadays, is going to register something when you go to like Barry's boot camp or some type of like thing like that. But there's no training protocol there. Mm-mm. And so we really try to emphasize the intention and stimulus of why we're having you do this. It's like, hey man, like, why are we doing echo bike sprints for 12 seconds, but getting like 3 minutes of rest? I'm like, well, let me tell you something about the echo bike sprint and, like anaerobic alactic training. And the extreme example is someone like, oh, Usain Bolt. It's like, okay, he's a runner. We see that as cardio, but he's a power athlete. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going off the block real hard. So it would not be, and this is also, I think, kind of a topic we'll kind of try 2 birds, 1 stone. This is I get this a lot, at least, is like, hey, is this a good program or a bad program? And I would try to rephrase that as effective or not effective, right? Because if he needs to get better within the first 3 seconds off the block, but we're putting him on like a 60-minute aerobic training program, that's beautiful, but like it's not effective or right for him. Mm-hmm. So I always think there's like not one right way to kind of skin the cat. There's definitely wrong ways too.
Mm-hmm.
Can we really define what like training versus exercise is? Like, because I had to look this up a little bit before, just because like they're kind of used interchangeably sometimes. Like exercise is training, right? But so is training is also exercise.
It's the whole like square, rectangle, square kind of thing, right? Like, are you getting exercise when you're training?
Yeah,
sure. You're moving your body. There's like metabolic pathways. There's all these things going on, but doesn't mean you're training because there's no step-by-step program, or process to get you to the next step. Mm-hmm. And you may not know what the next step is. So I think that's why a lot of people for a while, they're like, I like this because it's a fun community and there's like orange lights everywhere. And do you know there's a theory behind that color? I get it.
I would say, like I don't want to undersell those places because bottom line, everyone needs to move, right? Mm-hmm. If that's their entry point, perfect.
And I'm only going to interrupt for one thing because I think you're absolutely right. Like we can joke all we want about other stuff because you like the people listening like need to understand how much the world, especially the US, is not fucking crushing health and wellness metrics.
Especially the US.
It is a dumpster fire of unhealthiness. Like, so if you're moving and doing anything, and maybe you heard that comment and you're like, I'm offended now. We're not here to offend. I am so pumped that you went from nothing to that and you felt safer initially because of, whatever confidence, like do it for sure. But back to you.
You said initially.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely an entry point. Get people moving. But I think at some point people are going to realize like, oh, like I'm enjoying this process. I'm seeing a difference. I feel better. What's next? Because it's the same thing usually over and over. Maybe a little bit different, but you're going to get the same thing every single time. I think where CrossFit, everyone should be doing CrossFit, it is varied in an organized way here.
But not random shit.
But it's not random.
Yeah.
And it's always progressing you forward. Like you're going to get stronger. You're going to build.
If you show up.
Yeah. See? Yeah.
If you show up.
Yeah.
The gains will come.
The games.
Exactly.
If you show, how does the field of dreams thing go? If you build it, they will come.
There's a field. There's a lot of dreams.
Like even games athletes aren't like, okay, that's it. Like I'm good at everything. Bye. Like no. Like it keeps going.
I mean, and so I love using the CrossFit Games as an example to kind of showcase that even the elite kind of have like these whoopsie daisy moments, or like, oh my gosh. I mean, so like Matt Fraser, you may have heard of him, really good CrossFit athlete. If you look back to every games, he's always had one kind of event that's like, just whoa, wasn't prepared for that. Like you go back to that pig flip. Like Trish and I were watching something on Instagram. I was scrolling through. She doesn't have Instagram, so it was kind of like we were looking at something. I was spacing out, and it was some dude with like Hopper and Matt, who he's a like world strongman. I'm spacing on his name, and it was a 660-pound pig, and he pretty much to me just picked up with one hand and flipped it in one fluid motion, and it zoomed in on Matt.
His face.
And he's just like, fuck you. And then it panned to like, I don't know what it was, 2015 game 16, that like the pig was introduced and he was getting demolished. I think he took last in that.
Oh, yeah.
And like Tia in this last one, like tripped up on single unders. Everyone's like, oh my God, is this it for Tia? I'm like, no. But, you know, it's like you get a lot of people who do double unders. They don't like going back. So they think singles are like, well, wussy or a scale. I'm like, no, it's
like ring rows. I'm like, ring rows are hard.
I would rather freaking do normal pull-ups and kip than ring rows.
Everyone undersells ring rows, but yeah.
So I think a lot of that's like the narrative behind things. It's like all of this is here to move you based on what you can currently do or not do to the next level in order to do that thing, right? Like let's take butterfly pull-ups, for example. I don't know you guys. I remember the first time I was like doing pull-ups, I'm like, well, this is hard. And then I remember Chris Herndon, shout out if you ever listen to this, great guy. But he was like, I got him right when I was kind of like a trainer at this other gym. I've already been training for a while, but he was drinking the CrossFit Kool-Aid. He's like, let's do this workout. He's like, oh, here's kipping. I'm like, what's happening now? I can barely do a pull-up, right? Like I was always sport specific. I was never training in that like serious realm like that. And so I could do pull-ups, but then like once strict pull-ups go, it's like, you're gassed. I'm like, I'm gonna learn kipping. And then you do. And then you're like, watch this class. And some motherfucker can do butterfly. You're like, oh, what is this thing? And everyone wants to learn butterfly pull-ups, even though if you think about it, it's kind of like a one-stop shop. It pretty much just does the butterfly pull-up. Kipping goes elsewhere, right? So it's funny. I love this kind of scenario question. Let's say there's 3 programs I have for you. Hey, man. Or person. I can get you to do a butterfly pull-up in 1 hour. There's a 90% chance of death. Scenario 1. But like, you're going to leave today knowing how to butterfly pull-up and pretty well and kind of a lot. But 9 out of 10, you're going to die. Then there's like, hey, in 6 months, I can get a butterfly pull-up. 50% chance you're going to get injured. Hey, in 2 years, I can get a butterfly pull-up and you'll be fine. Which one are you choosing?
Third. Now, after I've hurt myself,
Okay, right.
So
I think like we know what we should say in this podcast. Like what, I don't know, like when you first started CrossFit, right? Because you came from like lifting background and all that. So I'm sure every time, especially as like a stronger, bigger athlete, gymnastics is most likely, I'm guessing, been more of a crux than weightlifting has been for you. Yeah. So when you saw that, tell me you weren't like, show me that now or I quit my membership.
It was the kipping pull-up, and I remember trying it many, many times. I actually remember my first day at CrossFit, and it was a shock. It was a very much shock. Funny enough, we actually did bench press. I crushed that part, and that's what actually really felt.
CrossFit's so easy.
Yeah, I nailed this. And then obviously the second part, we did the conditioning. And we were just warming up. And this is when Doreen, my wife, she actually introduced me to CrossFit. So shout out to my wife. Hey, babe.
Hey, Doreen.
Yeah. We were working out and I was like, man, this is really, really hard. And she looks at me and is like, Josh, this is the warm up. And I'm like, oh my God. Nice. I'm like dying. I'm like, are we kidding me right now? So it exposed so many things. My conditioning, my gymnastics, all of it. I was just a big tree who could just press really well. Before I started.
You can still press well.
I still can, obviously. Yeah. I'm a bias.
But you can also now do bar muscle up.
I can do bar muscle ups.
You can butterfly.
Yeah, and for my size, I'm actually pretty good conditioning wise, So, but obviously I have a long ways to go. Still striving to kind of get better every day.
So we know everyone should pick option 3.
Yeah, for sure.
No one fucking does. No, they don't.
And they want it right away. I'm like, are you going somewhere? Am I missing something? Like, what's the rush? Yeah. emotionally, I get it. You want that thing someone else has, and that's just a freaking.
Especially when you're competitive.
Right.
You want to keep up.
And there's being like competitive by nature, like, oh, like I'm going to beat you at like Monopoly or something like that. And then there's also like, I'm competitive as in like, I am trying to make a living in this. I need to accomplish objectively, point 1, 2, and 3 for this sport of, okay, now I can see it. We need you to be 100 pounds stronger on all your lifts. Okay, we need to bias strength in this macro, right? And then we're going to work on this, and then we're going to work on that. But if you're not in a rush there, and you're trying to show up every day and you're gem pop, and like, if you're a person who still wakes up with like feelings in the morning, like, I'm not coming in, and all of a sudden, like, you're 5 days a week, 1 week, one another, but you didn't travel, you're just like, I don't know, like,
didn't feel like it.
Yeah, slept weird, I guess, or like, I don't know, someone pooped in your punch and you're just in a bad mood. Like, you're missing out on these days that were programmed to move the needle somewhere. Right. And so it's important to show up. And this is this is what I'm going to love about this whole like dialogue we're going to have forever on this thing is it all plays together. Right. We talk about sleep, we talk about nutrition. We talked about knowing how to like have a capacity and engine, because when you do strict pull-ups, your body's like, hey, take a break. When you do kipping, we can recruit these bigger units to kind of like donkey kick ourselves up for 1 or 2 more reps. But you get off the bar and I'm like, I'm breathing hard. I sometimes strategically in certain workouts kip instead of butterfly based on what the other movements are.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because I'm like, dude, I'm fucking like, my heart rate is like pittering and pattering and I'm going to like vomit. And so it's like, it takes a certain level of conditioning to also do this thing that just seems like, but you said gymnastics and cardio is this other thing. I'm like, it all plays together.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think we are trying to move the needle. We do move the needle. I'm very long-term in my thought process, but why we even articulate and show and communicate, hey guys, in the next cycle, like it's very intentional verbiage, is because I also know like the general person, including like me, you like forever seems really long. If you're like, hey, here's this book. Oh, when's it end? I'm like, it doesn't. Yeah. There's so many pages and words. I'm probably gonna have a better time selling you on this and having that buy-in like you talked about. I'm like, dude, but the next chapter is gonna fucking blow your mind. There's like a dragon and a princess, but like she's kind of saucy. And there's this like person in a sombrero. I don't know why he's there. Be like, tell me more. So we're saying like, hey, we're going to work on Fran. You will PR if you show up. We're going to push this. This part's going to be spicy, but this part's going to be real nice. It's like, oh, I'm drawn in. You're now telling me the new shiny thing I can focus on for a bit. And then it leads somewhere. We know what's really going on behind the curtain. There's no point telling you our year plan.
Yeah.
It's a journey. I mean, it took me over a year to get my first kipping pull-up. My first Fran time was actually somewhere in the 9-minute mark. And now it's almost sub 3. No, sub 3. It's in the 4-minute mark. I forget what it is. But it's a lot lower than it used to be.
That's good.
So, I mean, and it's been 7-8 years. So, I mean, it's definitely been a journey. It took me almost 2.5 years, 3 years of doing double unders to finally figure it out. I remember old Jim, you'd see me throwing the jump rope many
the
times.
anger shark started to swim. But I think we can say a lot of that, by the way. When people say, oh, I'm just not good at this, or I've been doing this forever, I will look you dead in the eye without blinking. I'm like, no, you have not. You've never been on a program.
Yeah.
You've tried double unders.
You've been attending a CrossFit gym, but you haven't been following a program.
And that's kind of a slippery slope, how we want to kind of, but like, it's like just because you show up to a CrossFit gym does not necessarily always mean technically you're doing a CrossFit program or a good program or CrossFit sometimes in general. Like twice a month is not doing a program, even though we say we're on a program cycle. You're like, yeah, but I went. It was Tuesday. We did that thing together. I'm like, yeah. And then like, where'd you go after that? And so you're probably not good at pull-ups or good at double unders or stronger in your lift because you're not showing up, putting in the work that has kind of already been backed by a lot of, not just kind of like, oh, see that athlete, they did this thing and it worked, but like so many different researches on this and like so many papers on this and so many like, yes, that athlete did this and got better. This case study of 10 people did this and they got stronger. And this hypertrophy training got their muscles bigger and did not like go reverse order. Like it's out there, but we just now got to make sure we organize it right in our programming. Right? Like just because we did one back squat at 5x5 at like 80% and never touch a heavy squat again for 7 weeks, that doesn't mean we're on a strength program because we've seen it. Now, that's still going to do a lot for the average person. But if you're actually trying to move the needle, and that's the thing, you don't need to be a games athlete. Like, we're going to push you.
Yeah.
Like, our goal, I think, is safe to say, we want to create the fucking most badass gen pop. And we want to change the narrative on like what gen pop sounds. So like, average. And like, no, it just means you're not Medeiros. You're not Noel Olsen. You're not T. You're not a professional athlete. Like you have kids or a life or a long commute or 9 to 5 and you want to train. We are going to push you. We want you to feel comfortable going to other gyms and being like, oh my God, I'm actually pretty good. Like there's always going to be those people who are like, oh, that's that athlete of that gym. Right. But we take your time and money and energy and emotions and questions very serious, and we're going to move you forward. But this is kind of like one of those like train cars with like the up and down teeter totter thing. Like I can only do so much. Like we as a team are going to give 100% of our 50%. You need to come and do the other part, because eventually if I see you're not like pushing back on that part there's going to be like a resentment built. Or if you're pushing really hard and we're like, whatever, you're going to leave and get frustrated. And so like, this is a very like, this is a relationship. And trust us when we say we know what we're doing on the back end. And shout out to the back end. Oh, the back end.
It made it back.
Oh, hey, Callie dancing off to the camera. Yeah. I mean, yeah. From taint to back end, we know how to bring it full circle here. So we should probably wrap up around that. But it's, if you don't just automatically trust us, because you're like, well, I've never been there. Who the fuck are you? It's like, well, sometimes you just got to try things out. But I will say what we've consistently heard throughout our like tenure here and just as coaches and our programming from especially people who have previous experiences. I don't maybe know how to articulate it because this is not my specialty. I'm not, a hashtag scientist, but like I see in Sugar WOD, I'm stronger, or my retest was faster, or I put out more power on the rower. Like this seems to work. It's like, yep. And we will do our best to make sure it's still fun because, you're not a games athlete. They don't need to sometimes have fun. They need to show up and do their job if their end goal is to be the best and make a lot of money. I mean, we did something at the old gym so long ago. It was like 90 seconds. It was like 90 seconds of row, 30 seconds of maybe another athlete or movement that kind of rotated every 4 minutes. And people across the board were like, I am fitter and I might quit the gym.
Yeah.
This was so miserable. And I'm like, so we need to balance that. And I think we do a good job of that. But every once in a while, like spoiler alert, 30-second echo test next week. I repeat, 30-second echo test next week, but one and done.
Yeah.
Right. But we know within this cycle, we're focusing a little more on power output, right? On shorter and longer within that kind of spectrum. And we need to do these things. But I also know that that's really gross. So it's not 30-second training intervals. Like we did I think 15 seconds every 3 a while ago. This is a capacity test. This is a one and done. And you'll be okay. And you'll move on and you'll get better from it.
Yeah.
But show up. You keep avoiding those things and you wonder why your Fran time's not gone down. You can't express power on the rower. You can't rev the cadence up on the echo bike past like 70 as a person who's like 6'2" and 200 pounds. It's like, because you're not showing up to get stronger, to express power over, and yada, yada, yada.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
You mentioned Sugar WOD, and I just want to note, if you're not recording your data, start recording your data. All right, everything. Because, Cheryl here is a scientist, and you got to record.
As a scientist, you would agree, correct?
Yeah.
I would agree 100%.
I mean, data's king on that, because who hasn't woken up? And this I always use this kind of comparison is, I feel fat today. Hey, I get it. Like, I had that burrito last night. Probably shouldn't have. Like, I feel a little. And then you step on the scale, and it actually shows you're 3 pounds lighter. Well, okay. Well, whoa, what just happened? But I feel this. I'm like, yeah, but it's not correct. It's not true.
You can't go by feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain times it's like, this is not a smart thing for me to do. My 4th training piece today, I don't feel okay. Listen to your body sometimes, but feelings like that. It's like, I challenge everyone from here on out. Let's start smaller, more digestible for the next 2 weeks. Don't just enter your score. I open so many things and I see no one put notes.
Gotta have notes.
Right? Like, Dan crushes notes.
Oh, yeah. I was going to bring up Dan.
A lot of it's like, well, this is why I was maybe 10 seconds slower. I
woke up at 6:03 instead of 6:02 today.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was an 85-15 lean fat ratio in my turkey. It wasn't. It was, like, Dan, we love you. But yeah, there's always something. But it's more for you. Like sometimes like I'll read Julia's and it makes me giggle. Mm-hmm. But there's also notes in there. Could have gone faster. I think I need to do better in this zone. That's really for you. Mm-hmm. We just happen to see it. And if you don't like that public domain of that, then turn it to privacy mode. But you need to record it. It's fun to kind of get that confetti rain down. Like, you're awesome. But really what it's about is, guess what? End of the cycle, we're retesting Fran. And if you were here on that date, you need to know what you're shooting for. I don't want you to be like, oh, I just showed up today. Mm-hmm. Certain days, that's totally cool. Like, life gets lifey. Mm-hmm. It's test day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Show the fuck up. And you're going to love it after. Not during. But after you're like...
Type 2 fun.
It is... Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so hard not to be proud of yourself when you accomplish something like that. And that's what I love most about all of this is where else can you in day-to-day have these moments that's like, I didn't know I could do this. Mm-hmm. I think we lose that kind of dopamine hit when you kind of have... You turn your work folder in and maybe get like a praise from the boss. It's like, well, that kind of goes away after a while. Every time you get a new job, you're like, I'll clean the bathroom. And then it goes away because like, but here it's like, you both get humbled and you can feel proud of yourself at the same time. Right. So yeah, a lot of also, and we can kind of wrap it up unless you guys have any other questions after we want to talk about something, is a part of why I program the way I do is this is not just fitness anymore to me. Mm-hmm. This is like mindset. This is resilience training. Like when we did that one, it was every 2 minutes for 20 rounds. Already like, that seems like too many. Of 200 meter row /170, 20 double unders, 5 toes to bar. That was something that I wanted you to mentally be like, I'm like, you're going to make it. Like I talked to Adam, like if my Achilles would, assuming they would keep holding up on double unders, I could go forever. Because what happened in the games when it was Medeiros and Fraser running down that hill and all of a sudden Casper's like, turn around, run the whole thing again backwards. Oh, yeah. You can't be like, but it's like, no. Yeah. You need to know you're mentally built for that. And that's really what makes people better is not just like, I'm stronger. A lot of us have the same data points, but why does someone win? It's like they have something different mentally.
If you're conquering things in here, I know from my experience, like I got stronger, I got more confident, like my life changed. Like
it does.
Yeah.
It sounds so like corny, cheesy. Oh, that's a cold. But you're drinking a Kool-Aid. It is. Like, how can you not carry over these things? Like it's very rare, I feel like, to be you're a certain type of worker, certain type of parent, certain type of person at the bar, certain type of person on a first date, certain type of person as an athlete. Like usually it's like I'm freaking confident here. Not freaking, who am I? I'm fucking confident here.
Get it.
Get it. Yeah. Cheryl from the Midwest.
God, fudge. Am I right? if I know I can suffer and survive here, I can probably sit in traffic a little longer.
Yeah.
Because I'm mentally training without realizing I'm mentally training. Right? You may not notice at the time. You may not buy into the like, yeah. And we try to balance that kind of like mindset talk. Some people are just here to like, I need to release energy. Like, the kids are driving me fucking crazy. Please don't give me a life lesson right now. Totally get that. But in the grand scheme, like it is all this holistic thing.
No, life is hard. And honestly, like I keep on bringing up my son, but part of the reason I'm going to get him in the gym, even if he doesn't want to, is you can learn a lot despite just, getting muscles and getting faster, losing fat, but like what you can learn about yourself and what you can really grit through. And what you can actually put yourself through in suffering, that can translate a lot into real life. And those tough spots in, work or family or anything in life, if you can get through it here and just kind of, mentally put your head down and just keep on pushing, you can do that outside the gym as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up. And essentially kind of, we love programming as well. So it's not like we think we're good at it. We are passionate about it. And we want to tinker with things. And we might mess up on something like, ooh, that time domain was not appropriate for the stimulus we're going for. Cool. We're going to tweak it. That's the fun thing about like the recipe, know? And so that's, we have a plan to get you stronger against weight. We have a plan to get you faster and in better capacity so you can suffer better. We have a plan to progress you from ring rows to banded pull-ups to bar muscle ups one day, and you need to be patient, and we're going to try to make this a great experience so you can kind of stay, on board for the long haul. So yeah, Great job, guys.
Yeah.
Josh, you crushed it.
Episode 2.
This was fun. Yeah, I was really nervous.
It's fun,
but
man.
yeah, this
Don't
was a
be
lot of
nervous.
fun. Yeah.
You did well.
Yeah.
Again, any questions or anything you guys ever have, just message us and we'd love to talk about them. All right. But yeah, great job. Team high five.
Nice.
I was hoping at the same
threesome?
time.
So we're gonna
Yeah.
get threesome. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't,
Oh, that was bad.
That's two guys, one
That's
girl
the
there.
first time we did it.
Ah,
Things are gonna
all
be
right.
awkward.
All
All
right.
right, we'll try it again next time.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm so shy.